The 1980s were an age of neon dreams and Saturday morning magic, when toys weren't just plastic playthings, but gateways to entire universes. For every Transformers or G.I. Joe, there were others, shows that flickered briefly, then vanished into the haze of memory. Do you remember them, or have they been buried beneath dust and nostalgia, waiting to be unearthed? Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light, 1987. When Visionaries debuted, Hasbro imagined it as the next great franchise, knights clad in futuristic armor, each powered by holographic animal totems. It looked spectacular. Shimmering chest plates reflected rainbow holograms that seemed to leap off the screen, blending medieval fantasy with cutting-edge sci-fi. Kids marveled, but the excitement dimmed almost instantly. Why? Timing. The toy market was already crowded with Transformers, Thundercats, and He-Man. Hasbro's holographic gimmick, though dazzling, made figures expensive to produce and awkward to play with. The cartoon aired for just 13 episodes, barely enough to build a fan base. Critics praised its darker tone and creative storytelling, but children didn't bond with its grim setting or complex mythology. Behind the scenes, Hasbro executives grew nervous. They pulled funding when sales sputtered, leaving the Visionaries stranded, a kingdom without followers. Yet decades later, collectors cherish the few surviving toys, and fans still whisper of what could have been. Visionaries is remembered less as a failure and more as a tragic experiment, proof that even the most brilliant ideas can fade when the timing isn't right. Dino Riders, 1988. What happens when you mix dinosaurs with futuristic lasers? You get Dino Riders, a show that promised the ultimate fantasy. Armored tyrannosaurs, rocket-launching triceratops, and humans locked in a war for survival. Tyco's toy line was ambitious, highly detailed dinosaurs paired with soldiers and sci-fi weaponry. The cartoon, however, ran only 14 episodes. Despite its spectacular battles, parents balked at the price of the toys. These weren't simple action figures, they were elaborate playsets, often costing far more than rival brands. Worse, Tyco couldn't keep pace with marketing giants like Hasbro and Mattel. Behind the scenes, animators struggled under tight deadlines, recycling footage to stretch budgets. Critics later pointed out its surprisingly mature undertones, dealing with survival, loyalty, and ecological balance. Yet kids saw only dazzling battles, and once the toy line faltered, the cartoon quickly vanished. Today, Dino Riders lives on as a cult relic. Collectors treasure the dinosaurs for their accuracy. Many molds were later repurposed by museums. In the end, the series proved that even a wild mashup of childhood fantasies can stumble if commercial gears fail to turn. Jace and the Wheeled Warriors, 1985. Unlike other toy-driven shows, Jace and the Wheeled Warriors carried an unexpectedly emotional weight. Its hero, Jace, sought to reunite with his missing father while battling plant-like villains called the Monster Minds. The toy line, made by Mattel, featured modular vehicles kids could combine in endless ways. On paper, it should have been a smash. Instead, the toys and cartoon disconnected. Mattel rushed out the vehicles without any figures resembling the show's main characters, baffling kids who wanted Jace himself, not just machines. The cartoon, though visually inventive and anchored by a surprisingly stirring theme song, failed to secure a finale, leaving Jace's search for his father unresolved. Writers later revealed that scripts for a grand ending existed, but funding evaporated. The abrupt cutoff cemented its reputation as one of the great unfinished sagas of the 80s cartoons. Still, the series cultivated a quiet legacy. Its creativity inspired future animators, and its haunting sense of incompleteness gives it a mythic aura. Jace wasn't just forgotten. It became a symbol of potential never realized. Robotics, 1985. Born from Milton Bradley's attempt to merge construction toys with storytelling, Robotics was both fascinating and flawed. The toys themselves resembled giant robotic building sets, complex, modular, and intimidatingly mechanical. The cartoon, launched through Marvel's Super Sunday programming block, ran just 15 episodes. The story centered on warring alien factions who controlled massive robotic constructs piloted by human allies. It was imaginative but too heavy for kids who wanted simple, good versus evil battles. The toys, meanwhile, were difficult to assemble, frustrating younger children and losing out to simpler hits like Lego or Transformers. Behind closed doors, Marvel executives hoped robotics could be spun into a film or full series, but lukewarm toy sales killed expansion plans. Today, the few surviving sets are highly sought after by collectors, their complexity now seen as brilliance ahead of its time. Like a machine left rusting in the desert, robotics is remembered as both a marvel of imagination and a reminder that not all innovation survives the marketplace. Inhumanoids, 1986. If you thought 1980s toy cartoons were all cheerful heroes and colorful battles, Inhumanoids was the chilling exception. Produced by Sunbow, the same studio behind Transformers and G.I. Joe, this show aimed straight for nightmare fuel. Its premise revolved around monstrous creatures, giant, grotesque beings unearthed from beneath the earth, facing off against a team of scientists known as EarthCorps. Unlike other toy-based series, Inhumanoids didn't shy away from horror. Monsters like Decompose could rot humans into skeletal zombies with a single touch, while Metlar and Tendril reveled in chaos and destruction. Parents were horrified by the disturbing imagery, and complaints poured in, branding it too frightening for children. Some stations pulled episodes after only a few airings. The toys themselves were equally monstrous, oversized, detailed figures that towered over standard action toys. While collectors admired their design, many parents balked at the grotesque aesthetics, making sales uneven. Behind the scenes, Hasbro had envisioned Inhumanoids as a bold experiment, but by the end of its short run, the experiment was deemed too extreme. Yet, in hindsight, Inhumanoids has gained a cult following precisely because it dared to be darker. Its willingness to blend horror with Saturday morning cartoons left an unforgettable scar on those who watched it. Today, it stands as proof that even toy-driven series could stretch the boundaries of what children's television was allowed to be. Sectaurs, Warriors of Symbion, 1985. Released by Coleco, Sectaurs promised a wild fusion of insect kingdoms and epic battles. Its toys were truly unique, action figures that came paired with giant insect companions kids could actually control using hand puppetry. Imagine riding a massive spider or beetle as your war mount. That was the gimmick. The cartoon itself leaned into high fantasy. On the alien planet Symbion, humanoid insect warriors battled for survival in a world overrun by oversized bugs. It was ambitious, visually striking, and at times unsettling, with a tone far more serious than your average Saturday morning fare. But ambition collided with reality. The toys were bulky, awkward to play with, and often broke under strain. Parents also found the insect theme off-putting, limiting its audience. Behind the curtain, Coleco poured resources into Sectaurs, hoping it would match the juggernauts of Hasbro and Mattel. But the toy line fizzled after just 1 year, and the cartoon was left unfinished after a handful of episodes. Today, Sectaurs is remembered for its creativity and its daring blend of fantasy and body horror. For those who played with the toys, they were unforgettable, strange hybrids of puppetry and action figures. Its failure wasn't due to lack of imagination, but because it was too strange, too niche for its time. The Centurions, Power Extreme, 1986. At first glance, the Centurions seemed destined for success. Produced by Ruby Spears with character designs from legendary comic artist Jack Kirby, the series had pedigree written all over it. The toys centered on futuristic heroes, Max Ray, Jake Rockwell, and Ace McCloud, who could fuse their suits with modular exoweapons in land, sea, and air combat. The slogan said it all: Power Extreme. The cartoon showcased dazzling battles against the evil Doc Terror, complete with high-tech machinery and imaginative sci-fi worlds. Yet, despite its promise, it only lasted 65 episodes, enough to syndicate, but not enough to secure longevity. The toys, though innovative, were priced higher than competitors and sometimes felt fragile compared to rugged action figures like G.I. Joe. Behind the scenes, the toy line suffered from inconsistent distribution. Some regions, never, received full waves of figures, leaving kids unable to complete collections. Moreover, the characters never quite achieved the iconic status of He-Man or Optimus Prime. Still, the Centurions retains a nostalgic glow. Its combination of Kirby-inspired design and modular play remains a standout of the 1980s Toy-Toon era. For those who shouted "Power Extreme" with plastic accessories in hand, it was more than a cartoon. It was a childhood anthem that faded too soon. Silverhawks, 1986. When Rankin Bass, the studio behind Thundercats, decided to chase lightning twice, they created Silverhawks, a futuristic team of partly metal, partly real heroes battling the space villain Monstar. On the surface, it was dazzling, metallic warriors soaring through space, armed with cybernetic abilities and sleek vehicles. The toys gleamed with vac metal finishes that shimmered like chrome, standing out in any toy aisle. Despite its polish, Silverhawks never matched the cultural dominance of Thundercats. Critics suggested that its characters lacked the warmth and relatability of its feline predecessors. Episodes often felt more formulaic, and kids gravitated toward the villain Monstar rather than the heroes themselves. Toy sales were steady but not spectacular, and vac metal toys often chipped or flaked, frustrating collectors and parents alike. Behind the curtain, the production faced a rush to capitalize on Thundercats' success. Writers admitted they recycled familiar themes, but the show's darker tone and sci-fi edge never resonated as strongly with children. After a single 65-episode run, the series faded from syndication. Still, Silverhawks earned a cult following for its striking visuals and catchy theme song. Its bold attempt to merge space opera with superhero flair left a unique stamp on 1980s animation. Today, the series shines less as a forgotten failure and more as a glittering, if flawed, experiment in toy-driven storytelling. BraveStarr, 1987. From the same creative force behind He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Filmation launched BraveStarr, a bold Western set in space. Sheriff BraveStarr, endowed with powers drawn from animal spirits, defended the desert planet of New Texas against outlaws and the sinister Tex Hex. The toys were innovative, featuring large, detailed figures and even a talking electronic playset. On paper, it had everything: unique themes, moral lessons, and the backing of a major studio. Yet it arrived too late. By 1987, the toy-driven cartoon craze was waning, and Filmation's financial troubles worsened. The BraveStarr movie, released to launch the line, flopped at the box office, leaving the cartoon stranded. Behind the scenes, Filmation poured resources into this passion project, but overspending and declining syndication opportunities crushed its chances. Parents praised its Native American-inspired hero and its surprisingly mature moral lessons, but kids were already shifting toward Nintendo and video games. In hindsight, BraveStarr was ahead of its time, an imaginative blend of Western grit, sci-fi wonder, and cultural inclusivity. It serves as a bittersweet reminder that even groundbreaking ideas can falter if the cultural tide turns too quickly. M.A.S.K, 1985. Mobile Armored Strike Command, better known as M.A.S.K, was Kenner's ambitious hybrid of Transformers and G.I. Joe. Vehicles that transformed into combat machines, cars into jets, trucks into missile launchers, were piloted by heroes wearing special masks with unique abilities. The concept was irresistible, and the toys initially sold briskly, fueled by slick marketing and a colorful cartoon. The show ran for 75 episodes, introducing fans to the war between M.A.S.K. and the villainous Venom. But cracks soon showed. Unlike Transformers, whose characters became household names, M.A.S.K.'s cast felt more like interchangeable soldiers. Kids loved the vehicles, but often forgot the characters' names. The later toy waves shifted toward racing themes, confusing the brand's identity. Behind the scenes, Kenner executives chased trends too quickly. Scripts were churned out under tight schedules, and merchandising priorities often dictated storylines. Ratings slipped, and by the late 80s, M.A.S.K. quietly vanished from television screens. Yet nostalgia has kept its memory alive. Collectors cherish its innovative vehicles, and fans often cite it as the perfect middle child between Hasbro's giants. M.A.S.K. may not have achieved immortality, but for those who shouted its theme song while flipping cars into battle stations, it remains unforgettable. Spiral Zone, 1987. If there was ever a cartoon too bleak for Saturday mornings, it was Spiral Zone. Based on a Japanese toy line licensed by Tonka, the series portrayed a dystopian Earth conquered by the sinister Overlord and his army of zombie-like soldiers. The Spiral Zone itself was a toxic wasteland where humans became enslaved, leaving a band of Zone Riders to resist. The toys were striking, posable figures with removable armor and futuristic vehicles. But the show's tone shocked audiences. Storylines dealt with disease, despair, and psychological control, heavy concepts for children expecting colorful escapism. Parents complained it was too grim, and networks hesitated to air it widely. Behind the scenes, Tonka had high hopes that Spiral Zone would boost their presence in the action toy market, but limited distribution and poor timing sealed its fate. By 1987, the toy cartoon bubble was bursting, and kids were gravitating toward lighter fare. Despite its commercial failure, Spiral Zone earned a small but passionate fan base. Today, it is remembered as one of the darkest toy-based cartoons ever made, a brave but doomed experiment that proved not every story could be softened for Saturday morning smiles. COPS, Central Organization of Police Specialists, 1988. At the tail end of the toy-driven cartoon craze, Hasbro launched COPS, a futuristic cop show where cyber-enhanced officers battled colorful criminals in Empire City. Every character had a larger-than-life persona: Bulletproof, Long Arm, Highway, and villains like Big Boss and Berserko. The toys were muscular figures armed with spring-loaded weapons, reflecting the cartoon's over-the-top style. Unlike most shows of its era, Cops leaned into police drama tropes, stakeouts, undercover missions, and tech-driven crime fighting. It was slick, fast-paced, and action-packed. But there was one problem: timing. By 1988, parental watchdog groups were cracking down on violence in cartoons. Critics labeled COPS too aggressive for children, despite its campy tone. Some stations even pulled episodes or edited out gunfire. Behind the scenes, Hasbro was juggling multiple franchises. With Transformers and G.I. Joe winding down, they hoped COPS would refresh their empire. Instead, it found itself squeezed between political pushback and dwindling toy sales. Kids loved the futuristic gadgets, but the line didn't stand out in crowded aisles, dominated by Ninja Turtles and Nintendo. Still, COPS had its fans. Its animation was fluid, its stories surprisingly complex, and its characters memorable. Today, it stands as one of the last ambitious swings of the 80s toy cartoon era, forgotten by most, but remembered fondly by those who watched its neon-soaked battles unfold. GoBots, 1984. Before Transformers became the king of robot franchises, there were the GoBots. Produced by Tonka and animated by Hanna-Barbera, they were transforming robots too. Motorcycles, cars, planes, but smaller, simpler, and cheaper than their Hasbro rivals. Initially, this affordability gave them an edge. Kids who couldn't get Optimus Prime often got Leader 1 instead. The cartoon, Challenge of the GoBots, showcased the battle between the heroic Guardians and the villainous Renegades. On paper, it was nearly identical to Transformers. But while the toys sold reasonably well, critics found the cartoon uninspired compared to its rival. Characters lacked depth, and Hanna-Barbera's limited animation looked dated next to the slick Japanese imported style of Transformers. Behind the curtain, Tonka struggled to market the brand. While Hasbro partnered with Marvel Comics to build Transformers mythology, GoBots never developed the same narrative richness. Kids who owned them often felt they were second-tier robots. When Hasbro later acquired Tonka, GoBots were folded into Transformers lore as background curiosities, essentially burying them. Yet, GoBots aren't forgotten entirely. For a generation of kids, they were the gateway to transforming robot play. Today, they're remembered with equal parts nostalgia and mockery, a symbol of how timing and polish can decide whether a franchise soars or stalls. The toy-based cartoons of the 1980s were more than marketing. They were myths, experiments, and sometimes cautionary tales. Some soared, others vanished into obscurity, but all left echoes of imagination. Which forgotten gem do you remember most? Comment below, like and subscribe for more hidden journeys into pop culture's past.